A new ACIP meeting brings out more questions than answers. Cuffless blood pressure devices may not be all they're cracked up to be, and rural areas may be getting a healthcare upgrade with empowered pharmacists. That's just some of what we're talking about on today's RX Report, where you get your health, your news delivered. I'm your host, Manuel, and I'm coming to you from the home of pharmacy here at the American Pharmacists Association in Washington, D.C. Happy Rosh Hashanah, by the way. We've got a lot to get into today, so be sure to smack that like and subscribe button, join the conversation by leaving a comment on what we talk about, and let's dive in. ACIP, also known as the CDC Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. There was a much-awaited meeting late last week in Atlanta for the vaccine panel, where we expected to receive answers on America's official stance on certain vaccinations. After the FDA approved COVID vaccines for ages 6 months to 64 years for those with underlying conditions, all eyes were on ACIP for what the new official standard would be. APhA member Dr. Richard Dang was there and testified to advocate for pharmacists' role in immunizations and patients' roles in COVID vaccines. And we'll hear from him in the next show, so be sure to tune in there. In the meantime, let's discuss what really happened at this meeting. First up, the committee voted 8-3 with one abstention to recommend not administering the combined measles, mumps, rubella, and varicella or MMRV vaccine to anyone under 4 years of age. Instead, those in this age group were recommended to get the MMR and varicella vaccines separately. Next up, the panel voted unanimously to recommend that all pregnant women be tested for hepatitis B. However, a vote on whether the pediatric version of a hepatitis B vaccine should be altered was tabled due to disagreements over the language of the vote itself. But what about the devil on the world's collective shoulder, COVID? Although it was generally expected that ACIP would adhere to the earlier FDA approval of requiring a prescription for individuals younger than 65 or older than 6 months, the panel surprisingly backed away from that requirement. Instead, what they landed on for that middle group, according to a report from NPR, was that, quote, patients should speak with a clinician about the risks and health benefits. So what does that mean exactly? Is the COVID vaccine recommended for the middle age group, or isn't it? Well, at the moment, it's not really clear. After hearing news of the vote, Jen Cates, a director of Global Health and HIV Policy at KFF, which is a leading health policy organization in the U.S., said that the vaccine is, quote, no longer routinely recommended, it's shared clinic decision-making. To give you an idea of how close we came to a prescription being recommended by ACIP for a COVID vaccine, the vote ended in a straight tie, requiring ACIP Chairman Martin Kildroff to cast the deciding vote, which he did by voting no. So at this point, where do we really go from here? Well, before the ACIP COVID-19 recommendations can be put into practice, the CDC director must sign off to endorse the recommendations. Until then, this may not be applied at the pharmacist level, but once the recommendations are signed off by the CDC director, pharmacists in states who are still authorized to vaccinate according to ACIP/CDC recommendations and schedules can vaccinate patients according to FDA-approved product indications following shared clinical decision-making, also referred to as individual-based decision-making. Wow, that's a mouthful. But given that many states have already modified their regulations to go forward with their own rules for vaccination, it's frankly unclear where things move from here. In the meantime, I'd really love to know how you'll be working with your health provider to access a COVID vaccine. If you're a pharmacist, how do you plan to move forward on granting said immunizations? Let me know in those comments. Pharmacists, for more information on how to navigate the complicated spaghetti of new regulations surrounding COVID and other vaccines, check out APHA's latest webinar on the subject at the link in the description below. For our next story, we have some good news. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has released the Rural Health Transformation Program, which is a $50 billion initiative to improve rural health access, quality, and outcomes. This grant will be provided to states on an application basis, and states that allow for broader prescriptive authority for pharmacists are slated to score higher on their chances to win funding. In simpler terms, if states allow their pharmacists to provide a wider scope of care for their patients, then CMS is more likely to give them a Scrooge McDuck-style bag of money. This marks a major milestone in advancing full prescriptive authority for pharmacists. To toot our own horn here and humble brag a bit, APhA is leading national efforts to ensure pharmacists are fully included in the program and recognized for the value they bring to patient care. To support this work, APhA has developed a resource to help state leaders understand and leverage this unprecedented opportunity, which you can find in the description below. We've spoken numerous times on this show about the issue of pharmacy deserts or healthcare deserts, which are more likely to raise their metaphorical sandy heads in rural areas, leaving many Americans in the lurch when it comes to getting the care they need. This latest push by CMS is a direct salve for that wound. So, if you're in charge of a state that is interested, applications are due November 5th. Don't be like me when college applications were due and just wait till the last second, because that didn't work out very well for me. Be sure to send in your application at the link below. Before our next story, pharmacists are facing immense pressures, including staffing shortages, overwhelming demands, and high expectations. It can feel isolating, but you don't have to carry it alone. APhA is launching Connect and Care, a space for pharmacists, which is a new monthly confidential support group where members can share stories, connect, and receive guided support from their trained peers. Our first session is scheduled for September 30th on Zoom at 8 p.m. Eastern. Join us to build resilience, reduce stress, and remind yourself that you are not alone. You need to register to get your meeting details and a Zoom link, so be sure to check out that link in the description below. Before our last story, a hearty congrats to APHA's own Dr. Allison Hill. She is being honored at the Congressional Black Caucus Forum's Power 100 event. The Power 100 is an annual special recognition that honors the accomplishments of dynamic stars in law, politics, business, and medicine. And Allison made the grade with flying colors for her work with APhA on advocating for pharmacists and public health policy. Well done, Allison. In addition, right as we were about to finish recording, the International Executive Committee of the Kappa Pharmaceutical Fraternity Incorporated was pleased to announce that Michael Hogue, APhA's CEO, has been selected as the recipient of the 2025 Richard Bliss Grand Council Citation of Appreciation. This award is given to recognize extraordinary contributions to the fraternity and/or the profession of pharmacy. So a big congratulations to Dr. Michael Hogue from the rest of us here at APhA. Finally, for our final story, do you remember those squeezy cuff things at the pharmacy that you would use as a kid to see what your blood pressure is, even though you had no idea what those numbers meant when they came up? Do you remember as an adult still having no idea what the numbers meant and having to Google if you were dying or the prime example of health? Well, heads up, there is a new version of blood pressure devices that does not include a cuff. But bigger heads up, it may not be all it's cracked up to be, at least so far. Covered in a recent issue of Pharmacy Today, APhA's flagship members-only publication, Dr. Eugene Yang, the study co-author of the JAMA Cardiology Review, said, quote, "If patients express interest in these devices, pharmacists should advise them not to use them, as they have not undergone any appropriate validation. Instead, they should be directed to purchasing a validated arm cuff device." In a tale as old as technology's time, this new gadget may not quite be ready to be depended on, really. The report from Pharmacy Today mentions how blood pressure cuffs are far from perfect for personal, non-clinical use, with only 3% of patients using them correctly. Cuffless ones that are convenient and easier to operate properly are a good step forward, but only when they're ready and accurate. According to the Pharmacy Today report, while cuffs measure blood pressure through, pray for me through this one, sphygmomanometry? Okay, sphygmomanometry. Sphygmomanometry. The various cuffless devices on the market and in the pipeline employ different methods to measure blood pressure. Further on, there are some continuous blood pressure monitoring devices and others are not. So there needs to be a standardization of cuffless devices so the people know what they're getting. And then there needs to be quality control to make sure that the darn things actually, work. But what do you think? Are cuffless blood pressure devices a worthwhile investment, or should we just stick with the current cuffed version? Have your patients expressed interest in these devices? Let me know in those comments. And that is our show. Our executive producer is Rob Hodges. Our creative producer is Kate Erdmann. And until next time, I've been your host, Mason Manuel. That's all we've got to talk about today, but be sure to tune in to next Friday for more RX Report, where you get your health, your news delivered. But till then, bye, y'all.